Now it's time to begin to build out the paradigm for the third declension. Now again, as I've already introduced, this does not change the function of the cases. It doesn't change how it works, the key words that we use with the genitive and the dative. All of those things remain the same. Just like all nouns, not speaking of adjectives, but nouns, they all have one number, or they have one gender. They can be singular or plural, and they can be in any of the cases. I've noticed on some of the homework, it's important to remember that nouns have only one gender. Adjectives can be conjugated or inflected in all three genders, but nouns, each individual noun, even though the ending of a word in the genitive singular is the same in the masculine and the neuter, that doesn't mean that you can't determine. You have to know the gender of the noun. So that's why it's important. We learn either the article that goes along with it. There's a variety of ways to know. But in the third declension, we don't have as many immediate clues in some ways, but we have some helps that we'll work on. But for this particular video, let's just see the endings, and we'll put them onto a couple different words. And then in the next subsequent ones, we're going to introduce several other important words that come to us in the third declension. So let's just look at the endings first. Now, in the third declension, the masculine and feminine have the same endings. The neuter has a different set, but you're going to notice there's similarities. Remember, the neuter has some very clear patterns. Let's look here. So the endings are this. So in the feminine and masculine, you begin with a sigma in the nominative case. Then in the genitive case, we have O, or omicron sigma. Okay, we have iota. And then in the accusative, it gets a little tricky. We have either an alpha or a nu. Depends on the word. You'll just learn to recognize it. Now, the good news about the nu, you're used to a nu in the accusative case in the singular. That actually helps a little bit. Okay. In the plural, S. Now, this one we see the exact same pattern. We already know own. Own is always our genitive plural, even in the third declension. Okay. See? Sometimes I'm going to put this in parentheses because you'll see the movable nu on that. That'll show up at times. And then os. Again, you've kind of seen that before in the feminine first declension accusative plural. You've seen that before. All right, so this is masculine, feminine. Now, neuter, we have no ending here. Now, remember your noun rules. If we have no ending here, we have no ending here because they have the exact same endings. Also, remember that the neuter genitive is the same as the masculine genitive. So we know that one. Sorry about that. That looks terrible. There we go. And we know that the dative looks the same as well in the neuter and masculine. So once you know this one, you can actually create all of it. Now on the plural, we know this one. We already have that as our ending. Now if we know that these two go here, that the nominative and the accusative are always the same, we know that one. Okay. Now all of them, now these are the same, but all of them are owned. So now we know that one, and we know this one. Now granted, we see the pattern, it's clear, it's repeatable, it all kind of fills itself out, but it's new and it's different, and it gets a little tricky. Now the tricky part we addressed in the introduction on third declension is we see weird things happen with stems that end in consonantal endings, and when we put these on it, so strange things happen. So let's add in a word. Let's throw in a feminine word that'll go down this. So if we do the stem, I'm going to put the stem up here. The stem is sark. We know this word. It's an important biblical word. This is the word for flesh. So we've got sark. But if we add the sigma to it on that one, now remember, this is a feminine, so we're only going to do this chart. It changes. So that looks right, but then the sigma of this one combined with that kappa turns it into a xi, sarx. Now, we don't have that change happening in the genitive. That's why Mounts encourages you to learn the nominative and the genitive. Let's say that again. He encourages you, when you learn your vocabulary of third declension, to learn the nominative, which is the lexical form, and the genitive. Sarkos. Okay. Now, this is a little different. We have the stem, but because it's a consonantal stem and it can't ablaut the last vowel, since there is no vowel there, it's just a normal iota. It doesn't subscript. Okay. Sarka. Now we come down here. Sarkes. Sarcone. Now this is another one where we have a change because sigma standing next to other consonants, they don't always play nice, and they have a change. But the change here is going to be the same that we see up here. See how that becomes a xi? Well, the same thing happens. Whatever happens in the nominative singular will happen in the dative plural, because the same ending in the consonant, same sigma, creates the change. So this one is going to be sarxi, or maybe with the movable noon, sarxin. Sarkas. Okay, so that's how we do a feminine. Now let's do a neuter. And we're going to come across a type of neuter word that shows up fairly often, and it ends in a stem that ends in mu, alpha, tau, the mat ending. Okay, and so we see similar changes happening in all of these. Now we have no ending here, but a stem. I'm going to put the stem up here. Anomat. Anomat. Okay, with that stem, the tau is going to drop out. So, if it stands on the end by itself with no letters after, well, there's no ending here. So that one in the nominative is going to be anoma, but then it comes back and then it's normal. Anomatas. All mat nouns are always neuter, and they always follow this pattern. Okay. Anamati. Anama. Okay, now in the plural. Anamates. Anamaton. Anamasin. So you see how that drops out, the tau drops out after the tau, in front of the sigma. Atamasin. Anamata. All right. So this is a feminine following these endings. This is a neuter following these endings. That's third declension.